Hey, this is Marcus Washington, MTC Media. Well, Clemson in Georgia was put at noon, and I saw some things of saying, why isn't Clemson in Georgia a primetime game? And you saw why Clemson in Georgia wasn't a primetime game as the Dogs won 34-3. And a lot of this is going to be philosophy with Dabo Swinney and the idea of not wanting to embrace or at least accept the fact that we are in a new era of college football, and that era is going to include the transfer portal, and that era is going to include NIL, especially when NIL, no matter how falsified or manufactured some of these NIL valuations are, kids are looking at their valuations and quote unquote worth while they're still in high school. So the idea that these agencies and attorneys and agents and all this stuff can get the kids in high school and say your value is X means that when they're shopping for colleges, a lot of them expect for their value to be X. So the idea that you have a coach in a power conference who have been wildly successful saying, well, I'm not going to do it, seems ludicrous. And it's a really big question for Clemson. How long do you take a guy who has built up an immense amount of goodwill, who is brazenly telling you, I don't care what the current environment is, I'm not going to adjust? How do you deal with that? Do you continue to convince him or try to convince them, hey man, you got to adjust for the good of the university? Now, to borrow a line from a movie, you're so hot on discipline, start by accepting mine. And if I'm above Dabo Swinney, he has to start by accepting that your job is to do what's best for Clemson. Your job is not to say what you will and will not do. Your job is to do what's best for Clemson. So if what's best for Clemson is you start embracing this NIL stuff, you better start embracing NIL. If what's best for Clemson is you go to the transfer portal, then you start accepting that you're going to the transfer portal. But the idea that you think you're going to keep dictating what you define as right, and nothing says entitlement more than you thinking that you're the definition of what's right and what's wrong. And that's what Dabo is putting himself in there. He's trying to say, well, the way things were was the right way, and we need to hold on to that. And in a world that's moving away from that, in a world that's saying definitions of what's right and what's wrong in industries, it's a living document. And it is. At one time, you could put a 12-year-old in a coal mine. Can't do that now. Why? Because what's right and what's wrong in the industry was a living document. And right now, that's what college athletics are going through. It's showing even in 2024 that, what's right, what's wrong, what's industry standard, what isn't industry standard. It's a living document. And unless Clemson and Dabo Swinney adjust, yeah, you'll get plenty of wins in the ACC because it's hard for the ACC to be good consistently from top to bottom. But as far as making the splash that Clemson once made, that's going to be gone. It's Marcus Washington, MTC Media.